the one source, Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sports Card Nation. Always happy to be back with you. And let's thank our sponsors. Get that house clean out of the way in no particular order, as I always say. SGC, Iron Sports Cards, Sports Collectors Digest, Hobby Hotline, Upper Deck, Card Ladder, and the Certified Trading Card Association, which I serve on the advisory board for. Thank you to those folks. Check them out and all the great things they're doing in the hobby and for the hobby. And the guest on today's show is a longtime hobbyist and PSA's first employee number one. He's not there anymore, but he was there for quite some time. He does his own thing now for Mike Baker Authenticated, and as the name implies, that's our guest on the next two episodes this week and next episode, and that's Mike Baker. And I knew of him. I didn't know him personally, so through talking with him, I've gotten to know him better. And really nice guy. One of the first things he said when he agreed to come on and chat with us, he's like, "John, ask me anything you want to," right? That's always refreshing to hear. And I asked a couple, I don't want to say tough questions, but pointed questions, if you will. But, we talked about the hobby, current state of affairs, grading, what he does, why he feels it's a necessary part, what it enhances and brings to the grading niche, and he is also MBA. He's now grading cards as well, so they enter that arena. So great, interesting conversation. I enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy the next two episodes as much as I enjoyed recording them. So part one with Mike Baker today, and part two with Mike Baker next week. Enjoy. All right, real happy to have the next gentleman on the Sports Card Nation guest line. We were just joking around off the air. It's been an interview long in the making, but glad he's a busy gentleman. Glad to finally get him on, and generous to make some time for us as well. So without further ado, I'm glad to welcome Mike Baker of MBA, Mike Baker Authentication. Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having me, John. Good to be here, finally.
Yeah, no problem. Listen, when we obviously grading is a hot button topic in the hobby, and when you take a grading, I'm not fluffing you up. I'm just being honest, right? You're one of the names that come to mind because of your experience in that niche, still doing it in your own way as well now. Am I correct? Did I read that you were the first employee of PSA or first grader?
Yes, both. First employee. Actually, it's 35 years this month that PSA started. So dating myself there, but can't get past the father time and the facts. So
yeah, I'm with you. Talk about a little bit before that. How did that even start? You just applied? Did you get recruited? How did your career at PSA start?
It's basically just being at the right place at the right time. I had already been with the sister company, Professional Coin Grading Service, CGS, for 2 years prior to PSA's inception. And just by being there while they were developing the processes and everything else, I'm just like, wow, this is where I want to go. And so I just kind of made myself available for any conversation that, I find myself to be in, to get into the conversation of who might be the guy to take it over, or basically be the first guy there. And by de facto, made myself that guy with their approval, of course.
So you're the answer to that trivia question, which is pretty cool. You were there a decade plus. I mean, when you think back into like grading in its infancy, if you will, and where we are today here in 2026, I mean, it's kind of a loaded question, but like, how has it changed in your opinion through the decade?
Well, when PSA first started, there was no half point system. So right there, working with a high end 7, a low end 8 type thing it was difficult to kind of have the delineation that you have today with the half points. So, and that moved on. It was, I think, for 14 and plus years, they didn't have it. So they didn't change until the early 2000s. So that change was a big one that we didn't have. I didn't have. The change with the internet, eBay coming on in 98, that was a major one. QVC and doing big bulk submissions for modern stuff to try to narrow the gap in the brand awareness of what PSA was representing, what they were actually doing. That helped big time. So there was a lot of things that kind of coalesced. You had the 98 home run derby with McGuire and Bonds. So there's a couple little things that really helped juice up the, no pun intended, the entire market as a whole. So those were some of the transformative things that I saw happen at that time. And you can look back now and say, what were really the kind of the markers that kind of really pushed things over the edge. Dealer support at the beginning of PSA's inception, there was very little dealer support. There's a lot of collector support that kind of made the dealers kind of, I'll buy that car from you for this price if you get it graded by PSA. And then we had PSA authorized dealers, and things kind of went a much better direction in terms of brand awareness and submissions and all those good things.
I'll pick your brain here, Mike. A lot of people complain. Obviously most people know what's going on now. A lot of backlog, especially PSA. They've paused their lower levels. Some people are complaining that people are sending in, air quotes, lesser cards that shouldn't be graded, or why are you grading that? It's a $5 base card. Again, it's the individual's card. If they want to grade, might have a sentimental reason, right? There's all sorts of, but I've heard people, it's been called like the junk slab error. I mean, someone who's been in it that long, was this always the case? And maybe we're just more noticeable now because there's more people sending cards, or is this sort of a new phenomenon? How do you see it as someone that was there on in the early trenches to where we are today?
Well, in the early days, just to get people to carry the product and start this kind of transactionality, so you got consistent with what people were buying and selling, and it just because forever it's been a raw product, and now it's encapsulated, and now there's more trust when you send an encapsulated product across the across state lines, whatever it was. There's all this kind of bugaboos and whatever that came with it. What really has transformed it, in my opinion, is repacking. And when you just brought up a $5 card to get graded, well, the repackers need that $5 gig so that they can put that in the product. And so that's really what is, in my opinion, has been the kind of major driver for cards. I will say, though, because the brand awareness is so big, people will come up to shows, and in my booth, I can speak for what we're getting, and they just want it encapsulated, and they're willing to pay the price. I mean, there's stories, and you could get a lot of dealers on here. They remember the early days with PSA when $6 bulk deals and basically getting cards graded for under $10 without any uptick charges. That was the norm. And now, it's just a different era. 35 years later ish, that's who knew that repackers are going to be such a big deal, and digital repacks, physical. It's just gone places where the market's humming. I never thought having a conversation where a grading company, the biggest grading company in the business, PSA, would have to shut down because they're getting too many cards, and then to boot have a 8-figure backlog. That's crazy, and things have changed.
Yeah. And great point by you too, Mike. I that kind of slipped through my 5-0 with the repackers role in this as well. I didn't forget about them, but you forget the impact they're having because they need those graded cards. Whether it's like you said, digital, opening a digital pack, there's got to be a real card behind that, that person has the option to either take possession or have them hold in whatever their holding facility vault. But I think sometimes a lot of us probably don't even realize that impact of it. It's not just Joe Smith from Sheboygan. And again, it's not really, when people complain about that to me,
even at my tables, I'm like, listen, people want to pay the grading fee to have a car graded. That's their prerogative. This is America, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you can get mad, but when we think of the grading niche too, Mike, like it's a weird business model because like if a restaurant is really too busy, they just hire more staff, maybe build an addition with more seating, but grading's different because obviously you don't want just any, you say, well, just hire more graders, right? That's easily said, right? But they need to be put through the paces, apprentice, be trained, and I think anyone that's getting their cards graded don't want just anyone to do it. If you have a choice between someone who's experienced, who knows what they're doing, or doesn't, I think the choice is easy. So, I know grading gets compared to a lot of, normal businesses, if you will. And I think it's sometimes hard to do that because it's just such a different kind of industry. It's not a restaurant where you can train a wait staff or, even a cook or whatnot in a week's time, maybe, or less, right? It's not as easy as that. So, I mean, kind of your thoughts on that.
Well, you just nailed it. I mean, this is, grading isn't 3 letters. It's graders, human beings are doing this. And, I'll give AI and machine learning a little bit of props to help with the centering identification and sizing identification. But ultimately, it's the guy that's looking at the card, and then having his experience on what he's looking at and interpreting that to a standard and then applying that consistently. It's not something you just grab off the street. If it was that easy, we wouldn't have 10 million card backlogs. Do you think PSA or any other grading service wants to shut down their business and not take revenue? I mean, you can conspiratorial think, oh, they're just trying to drive prices so they get more money for higher charge services. No one's, in my opinion, I don't believe that. There are cards that, like you said, they're worth $5, and there's a service option to service those types of cards valued at that level. But if any grading service can get 10 million cards out, they would try to do that. And I think, like you said, it's gated by the person's experience. You can't take them off the street. They have to go through the litmus test, so to speak, to get into the chair, know what you're doing, and then effectively grade. And it's a talent. It really is.
Do you think this will be more the norm? Like even when in PSA's case, they unpause these lower levels, these bulk levels. Do you think this is going to be sort of like we're going to see this every so often, or you think there'll ever be a point where they can stay ahead of it or not really because of the growth of the hobby?
Well, that's the balance, right? It's how much growth are we talking about? What's the future look like? I think after COVID, I would have thought that wouldn't happen, but the market's it's dynamic. It's going to do what it's going to do, and I will say, like any market, there will be ups, and there's hyperbolic ups right now within the market, and there'll be a downturn at some point. Just how it goes. It's Murphy's Law, whatever law you want to apply to what goes up must come down type thing. I think it's to what degree does it continue to go up, and to what degree, when it does correct, will it go down? And I think that's the kind of the debate of where should you be, the timing of the market, just like stocks or real estate. You hold something for a while, you really like it, especially trading cards in particular. We all have a passion for them, and I always say, if your house is on fire and you've got cards, your dog, and your wife, what order are you grabbing? Which one? It's cards usually falls on top. And
I'm not going to answer that. Just to stay married.
We're all we all have a lot of OC behavior in us. To what degree is debatable, but when you're spending your discretionary income on things like this, and now it's not even a baseball card anymore. Now it's an alternate class asset and all these other big league terms, so to speak. And they're coming in. I'd like to believe that's going to continue to roar. I know it feels like the market's cool. It's got a wow factor now. It before was like, oh, I got back from college and my mom threw away everything that I had in the attic and stuff. Or those are just baseball cards. Who really cares about that? And now it's like, what do you mean you have Pokemon cards and, trading cards? Look, that's the greatest thing ever. You could be sitting on a fortune. So the whole narrative is switched. So to what degree that holds the line in terms of it going forward on a 4 or 5X or whatever X you want to apply, I don't know. But I want to put my finger on it and say, I think it's got some shelf life left to go still. So
Yeah, no doubt. I tend to lean towards what you're saying. I think it's going to get bigger. You know, how much? I guess the question is how much bigger, right? Now, not the if. It's just how the quantity of. I got to ask you this question, Mike. You know, we've Collectors Universe, the parent company of PSA. Obviously, they acquired SGC a few years back. We then read more recently they've acquired Beckett Grading as well. A lot of people up in arms saying it's a monopoly. They own 3 of what most people would agree is the big 4. You know, people want the government or the Federal Trade Commission to look into it, get involved. As someone who's worked for PSA and now has his own grading company, in a sense, like, kind of where do you fall on, you know, what people are with the monopoly word and antitrust and all that stuff that comes with it?
Politically speaking, it's easy. You know, for me, from MBA's perspective, my personal perspective, it's great because we're an independent. And if you're tired of not wanting to deal with what is perceived as a monopoly or whatever the perception is, then there's options. There's CGC, there's TAG, there's others that are out there that are trying their hardest to win the hearts and minds of the community at large and whatnot. And I know we're doing the best that we can. Ultimately, it's going to be dependent upon, you know, how they conduct the overall operations independent. I've been in interviews in the past where I've commented on, you know, there's something good that could come from this by consolidating. I know that's kind of like the opposite world of what most people on the street would agree with, but if it's done right, they could pull it. If it's not, it'll go, the market will dictate what's going to happen. If that means oversight or whatever may come from it or not, I don't know. All I can tell you is, you know, nobody wants to have a 10 million card backlog and not get those out and tell people that have submitted that their cards aren't coming back until that. I can tell you. So I know no one's sitting around going, how much longer can we hold on to these cards before we send them out without them getting pissed off? I don't believe that anyone's, I think everyone's trying to do their best, get the cards in and out. And then it just comes down to service and, you know, are you sticking to the line? I think those are the 2 things that people mostly should be concerned with or considerate of, is service and consistency. That's where it sits. That's what's going to win out.
Yeah. One more question kind of pertaining to those groups. You know, I'm asking you to put your like fortune teller hat on, looking into the future. 5 years from now, does Collectors Universe or Collectors Holding, do they still own all 3 grading companies? Do they own? Do they sell 1, 2? Like,
that's a good question.
You're not going to be penalized for being wrong.
I think they're going to be public, and I think they're probably going to have all and or more under their umbrella. So within 5 years, they're public. They're a big juggernaut. They're moving and shaking. They're escalating the 10x factor. I know Michael Rubin said that's what he would like to accomplish at Fanatics, and you know, who knows? He said that a few years ago, and they just got the license this year. So you know, that 10x factor could be much. There might be another multiplier on top of that. So PSA just opened an office in Frankfurt, Germany. We're talking about opening up internationally at some point in the future. Right now, we're trying to get our system scaled up to handle what we get right now. But the international thing, it just shows you the growth of the hobby overall. You know, we're going to attend the Macau show in October. So we're going to Macau, China, to go talk to collectors. We get a lot of interest from, you know, Singapore and Taiwan and far. It's unbelievable how much reach now is out there and how people are you know, collecting and transacting all around the world right now. And that's really the unknown factor. And how long does that heat up and continue to churn, you know?
Yeah, it's a, you know, it used to be kind of America's hobby, right? And now it's a worldwide phenomenon.
You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
If you care about the future of the hobby, it's time to know the name CTCA, the Certified Trading Card Association. CTCA is the first and only nonprofit trade association dedicated to making the trading card hobby safer, smarter, and stronger for everyone. From collectors and local card shops to breakers, grading companies, and hobby businesses. Through initiatives like the Trusted Retailer Program, the Certified Breaker Program, the Healthy Hobby Initiative, and the Global Trading Card Registry, CTCA is helping bring more trust, transparency, accountability, and protection to the hobby we all love. Whether you're a shop owner, breaker, dealer, content creator, or passionate collector, now is the time to help shape the future of the hobby. Become a member today and join the movement at thectca.org. That's thectca.org, because a better hobby starts with all of us. CTCA, building a safer, smarter, and stronger hobby.
We are back.
You know, we're seeing shows like you just said in China, in Germany, and other countries that have never had card shows, in London, and the list goes on and on. And you know, I like to see that. I'm you know, as someone who started in 1979 as a 7-year-old kid, I like the fact that I don't want to think that someone can't enjoy the hobby because of where they live, right? And that's a disqualifier. So I enjoy seeing the growth, if it's good growth, right? There's, you know, that's a double-edged sword. You know, we won't go down that rabbit hole, but I do enjoy seeing the growth. But it's interesting to hear you say, like, in your opinion, like you think they still, not only you think they still hold those companies, and you even mentioned maybe even acquire another one. That would surprise me with some of the to answer my own question, Mike. I don't know if, like, they're already getting heat for what they own now to add another one, whoever that may be. Like, I'd be surprised if they did that, but you know, nothing really should surprise us anymore. What we've seen in the last decade in the hobby.
Well, you keep pushing until you find out where you can't push anymore, right?
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, if they were to do something like that and someone said, no, okay, well, we know the oven's hot now, we won't touch it. So, but if someone says the oven open for business, then why not? You know?
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And listen, I do that, you know, when I still play men's competitive softball, and I coached varsity high school baseball and football. And I would put, you know, I push the umps or the refs right until they tell me, like, none, you know, I don't want to hear another word out of you. You're gone. And I know that, all right, I gotta keep my mouth quiet now. So it makes sense. So yeah, maybe that's what it'll be, right? Where until they're told, like, hey, you have to sell at least one, or you can't do that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You know, my big fear, and I'll just like close this segment with, you know, my big fear. You know, people ask me, because I was bulk subbing as an SGC bulk subber at the time of the acquisition. And a lot of people were asking me, hey, what does this mean? What is this going to look like? And honestly, I can only give an opinion. I'm not in those meetings or those, you know, outlook plans. So, you know, I gave my opinion. But one thing I was glad about, my big fear, and I'll get your take on this too, Mike. My big fear was that Fanatics was going to buy a grading card company. And I don't want to see that. And again, I think it's a conflict of interest when you're producing cards and grading them, and not only grading your own cards per se, but you're also, in a sense, will be cards for all reports very well. And you know, I don't think they need a grading card company. As someone who's, again, very experienced in the grades, let's say acquired SGC, or even someone else and got into the grading space.
You broke up there a little bit, John. So I'll just grab what I could make out of the stuff with the internet connection. I don't know what happened there, but give me a quick snapshot of what you were talking about. Fanatics owning a grading company.
Yeah, I'm at, like, I'm glad Fanatics didn't. And again, everything can still happen, but at this point, Fanatics, you know, there was rumors they tried to acquire SGC and others grading companies. I don't want to see Fanatics own a grading company. I just think it's a conflict of interest. With grading their own cards, grading competitors' cards. I think it just sets, it's a bad sort of precedent. As someone, again, of your expertise in the space, do you agree, disagree? Something you're glad it's not the case now?
Well, I mean, ideally, there would be guardrails up for companies that have access to production, sales, and everything else. But, you know, in this market over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of change. We've seen what you mentioned about, you know, PSA doing or collectors. Other things that have kind of gone on that I would have thought, years ago would have absolutely not happened. And now they are, and there's an uproar, but it seems like our news cycle the velocity is so fast that there's no like traction of something. It just like everyone kind of gets up in arms about it, whatever it may be. And then it kind of burns its shelf life off in 48 hours to a week. And then it's on to the next, butterfly to catch. And so, however it works out with Fanatics doing anything or whatever other company, it'll be what it'll be. And the people, again, the market's going to go back and decide what they want to do business with or not. I mean, ultimately, if the prevailing thought is that Fanatics shouldn't do that, then the only way to counter it, if they were to do it, is for people to not do business with them, to make it so they get. But ultimately, there's ways to gamify everything and kind of make the friction not be so frictionable, or whatever the word is, to use them as a service, hypothetically. So I don't know. We could go on and on about the debate of the what ifs and stuff. They're going to do what they're going to do. And PSA did what they were going to do, and they left it like, hey, we did it. Now what? And everyone's still submitting to the point where they had to shut down services. So, if it was that big of a deal, I think you would notice it more in submissions, because, even if you can't stand whatever you hate about a service or the service, ultimately the three letters command a lot of liquidity, and people are entrenched in certain brands for that liquidity. And some of them, are so OCD, they can't fathom using another grading service to, kind of mess up their ecosystem within their collectible. So they want all the same holders. They want everything to look this way. Everything's got to be this color or that color. So, I don't know. I think it's up for each individual to figure out, look, if you have $100 bill right now and you could spend it on anything, why this market, why that grading service, why whatever, right? So ultimately, it's going to be up to you and the other people in the world to sort where they want to spend their money. And for whatever reason, even if it's putting your nose up in the air saying, I hate to do this, but I have to. My client will only buy it if it's in this grading services holder. You're going to look the other way. Most people do. Conviction in our world, in the business world, you can't put your personal opinion. You have to do business, and business is business. It's cliche for a reason.
Yeah, no, you're right. All right, let's enough talking about other three letters. Let's talk about MBA, right? We gave them some free pub. Not that they need it, but we gave it to them anyway. Let's talk about your company, MBA, Mike Baker out there. Kind of like how why you started it, how you started it, where you are today, and all that good.
Yeah. The why was just heard PSA celebrated, or the celebration of 150 millionth cert being bought out on the market. 35 years. So let's say the number is 150-ish with PSA. Overall market, you've got to probably talk in the 200 million plus range, of units of plastic that are out there over 20, 30 plus years. The grading services have changed their standards. They've included new things within their standard. They've tightened up their standard with centering. There's a lot of little here and there and everywhere where I thought a sticker could be a good idea. It was proven to be a good idea in coins with John Albanese doing the CAC sticker, much so to everyone's opinion that PCGS actually included their sticker into their weighting of the PCGS coin register. So it included a lot more gamification. So a sticker had a higher weight, or has a higher weight than a non-sticker coin. So it has a track record of highlighting better copies. So I did not invent that wheel. PWCC was doing their sticker well before MBA came up with one for the trading card industry. There are other stickers that auction houses use. Four Shop Corners has theirs. Heritage has one. There's been others here and there. That was the need. The need is, you've got all these great cards out there that are in the same grade, but some cards are just better within the grade. I always use this example for nines in particular. PSA doesn't have a 9.5. So between a 9.0 and a 9.9, there's just better cards. It's just a fact. They don't have a pristine, they don't have a flawless or a black label type thing. So our sticker helps with that. And we'll be celebrating our 6-year anniversary coming up here in August. And we finally got some really great, I think we hit our moment in time, our tipping point last national in Chicago. And some great sales happened. Heritage got some great sales. Golden got some great sales. REA, fanatics. And it just like was like this perfect moment where they started advertising MBA within the catalog, describing it properly. There's more search. There's just more information. Also, when we first started, a lot of the cards that we sticker were in personal collection, so it was no one wants to sell PC cards, right? But this hyperbolic market has drawn out a lot of colorful cards that are stickered, great cards, and they're selling for stratospheric prices, and it just keeps churning. So another log gets thrown on the fire, and it's still roaring and ripping, and it's been great. I've it's been a hard road, but getting out there, COVID was a big non-starter for people wanting to send their cards. We've been labeled grading the graders and all the other, fun terms and whatnot. Ultimately, it's a crossover. The sticker means something to what we do for our MBA graded product. So if it's a silver sticker, it's going to get the exact same grade, but you're going to get a silver sticker on our holder because it's denoting superior eye appeal for that card in that grade. A gold sticker represents something that's a half point or higher.
Yeah, I'm a little stubborn. I'm a little old, and so I always felt it was like you're paying twice to have one card. So I've never done it. Again, it's a free country. It's America, right? And obviously enough people want it done. I guess my question to you is not so much why, but like when a card gets a silver stick, and like it was a great point by you, right? With CAC, I know they were called the green bean in the coin. And the track record shows us, right? I'm not a coin guy, but I did enough research to know, and I have a coin guy friend who said, "Hey, John, with that green bean sticker, those coins bring more money on the second, like it or not, those bring more money on the secondary market, right?" So I guess my question to you is between the silver and the gold, and like I've heard it worded like this is in the 10% of the top of that grade. How do you know that? I guess would be I know it's sort of a simple, maybe too simplified, but how do you know that it is, other than you feel like it's sort of like, grading is subjective to begin with. You know what I mean? To say that, how do we know?
Well, I think, if I showed you 10 copies, I think it would be pretty easy for you and I to agree that the copy that's getting a sticker is within the percentage that's being, marketed. Ultimately, though, we started our graded product holder, hit the market in January of 25. Now, it shifted from it being that conversation of, if you had 10 or 15 cards in front of you, which ones would what could we all agree that is the superior copy within that grade in that sample? And now it's literally a crossover. So, we look at it like it's got to adhere to MBA standards, MBA grading standards, and the sticker goes to that. If there's ever, a wobbler, then maybe the conversation can kick into the 10%, but by the national or shortly thereafter, we'll have our bronze sticker that's going to come out, and that's going to be the grade equivalent. So it's basically going to note, bronze sticker will denote the exact same grade going into an MBA holder. A silver will denote superior eye appeal for that grade. So you'd have a silver, gold, half point or higher, and black strictly for 10s for denoting a flawless. So that's how you know.
Yeah. I hear black label, and that makes me think about the whole Beckett controversy. That's a whole show in itself. But that's them and not you. So, what for those that are listening? Like, what's the difference between this? So, is there going to be no more gold? Is there a gold label?
They're all So basically, third party graded cards, PSA, SG, CGS, CD, tag are the ones that we do right now. Any gold represents a higher grade. Any silver represents the same grade with superior eye appeal. When we do launch bronze, it will reflect the exact same grade going into an MBA graded holder.
Yeah. So if a card gets a gold sticker from MBA, you're basically saying it was undergraded.
That's right.
In your opinion.
Yes.
Do you ever, not that you care, do you ever get any pushback or feedback from a grading card company that like, hey, why do you do that? Or you're wrong, or, that doesn't make sense?
No, there's not. I think it's, I joked about it last week, and it's kind of like Anchorman. The grading services are kind of like news stations, and it seems like there's not a lot of, cohesion. Now I know, Scott, a great guy, knows his stuff, no doubt about it. Can I call him up and ask him about a card's nuances, or if there's a question about something, absolutely. Are we having, a philosophical discussion about what NBA is doing relative to a sticker? No. And I bet if we did, he'd think it'd be great. Same with some of the guys that I hired and trained that are still at PSA, leading the entire grading department. I think they say that they're great. They're happy that I found a lane to, that I'm happy with. And I think the market for the most part has been acceptant of. I know there's the naysayers out there, but like you said about the coin, the CAC, the green bean sticker, whether you like me or you don't like me, it's not a personality thing. It's the data that comes from the sales, and that builds the business case. That's where this decision should lie from, not on all the other superfluous stuff that you can get caught up in this, cause and effect mentality that a lot of people have in our hobby.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
There you have it, part 1 with Mike Baker of Mike Baker Authenticated, or MBA, and hopefully you enjoyed that as much as I did, recording it and talking with Mike. And that's only half of the conversation. Part 2 next week, as we've, went to 2-part episodes, probably almost a year ago now, and probably one of the best decisions I made for the podcast. So next week, Mike Baker returns, and as always, as we gear up for the National, hope to see a lot of you there. If you see me and happen to know who I am, I'm a very personable guy. Stop me, poke me in the back, tap me on the shoulder, say, "Yo, Newman," and I'd like to meet you, shake your hand, and talk some hobby in person as well. So that's going to do it for this episode. We're going to hear from our Hobbies the People announcer of the week and wrap it up. And Mike Baker will be back next week.
Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
What's up, Sports Card Nation? This is Brett McGrath with the Stacking Slabs podcast. Remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
Hey, John, you want to have a catch?